Working on it, right?
Well, good afternoon, folks. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Our session today is called 50 Ways to Enrich Your Family Engagement Effectiveness. So this session is being recorded, as you just noted by the little thing that came on your screen. That is so that if at a later time you want to watch it again, or you want to share this information with other people on your staff, that you can reach out and share that information. And also there are people who have signed up for their session this afternoon who had other obligations, and they will be catching this at a later time that's a little bit more convenient to their watching. We will try to repeat this session again in September. It's a topic that kind of is when you're launching the school year. It's a great way to start thinking and focusing, being intentional and purposeful to work with families, but not everybody runs on the same schedule across the country or even across regions. So welcome to our session this afternoon. We are Learning Props. I am Bev Schumacher. I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and doing all of the other hard work, the organizing and so forth, is Vicki. If at the end of our presentation today, you do need a certificate to say that you attended this afternoon, let Vicki know and she can get you whatever kind of documentation you need in order to let your staff know that you did this. But Vicki is in Texas, so we are excited that you are here to join us. We encourage you to download our handouts. Vicki did send those out prior to our session this afternoon. If you did not get them and you need her to do that, let her know in the chat what you need and she will dash them off to you. So speaking of chat, please do share your name and where you are from and your position, that we can get to know you and you can know each other. And as we go through the session this afternoon, if there's some things that pop up that you say, oh, I have this great idea, I should share that, please enter those ideas into the chat and we will try to use those ideas for our next session or share some at the end if we have time. So who is Learning Props? While you're filling into the chat, I'll just give you a quick overview. We are a company that provides resources for families to talk, play, and learn with their children. And our emphasis is on the early learner. In the upper left corner, it says Family Engagement Solution Packs. We offer a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old solution pack, but the idea is that there's a resource for every month of the school year for families to receive in order to extend learning at home. The next frame that says New Me series, it's a book and game combination. There are 3 new titles that we are very excited to have at the finishing points. One is called Healthy Me. Another one is called Safe Me. And the third is about social emotional development called That's Me. We also produce other games. There are actually 11 different games we have created. They are available in fabric as a durable, recyclable, reusable, shareable resource. And then we also do them in a cardstock. Each of our games comes with a book. Our books are available in English and in Spanish English, as are our games. But we also offer the books in Arabic, and we also offer them in Chinese. On the lower left, it says Family Activity Kits. We have several family activity kits that if you just want a one-time activity for families to do, or do a family fun night and are looking for some educational resources to go with that, we'll let you check those things out. We have a game for transitioning both into kindergarten for kindergarten entry and one for pre-K entry. We also offer door hangers for those who do home visits, and sometimes families can be missed. And we need a way to be professional and intentional in making those connections with those missed people. And professional development like we're doing today. End of commercial. Here we go. So my credentials. I am the author of a book called Menu for Building Family Partnerships. I am the creator and designer of Learning Props games, books, and other parent engagement resources. I served 10 years as a parent involvement coordinator. Have been a teacher, a consultant, a presenter, a librarian, a researcher. And as you can tell by my graying hair, I'm getting along in years. So I've had a lot of rich experiences that I bring to the work that I have been doing. So your challenge is to take away 3 ideas. So if you got that handout that Vicki shared with you, it looks like what you see in your lower right on your screen. And if you didn't get it, just let Vicki know and she'll share that through your chat with you. So the idea that I want you to take away is 3 ideas, or they can be even nudges to do something that maybe you've done in the past that you just haven't thought about doing recently. And if you have some other ideas during this session, please enter those ideas and share them with us. There's 2 basic ideas that I have to share, my beliefs in working with families. And the first one is that saying school plus home equals learning. Schools do as much as they can with children that are with them, that they are educating, but we also need the family at home to also engage in that learning and enrichment. And when we work together as a team, we have optimized learning. So school plus home equals learning. I often ask the question of parent or partner, what is the difference? So I'm going to challenge you to look at the word parent and look at the word partner, and can you spell the word partner out of the word parent? Try to spell the word partner out of the word parent. So those 2 principles again, school plus, hopefully you're saying to yourself, home. And that's on your slides on the handout that you do have. And the second one, parent or partner, the difference is 1 letter R. The difference between a parent and partner is you are. And as the educational leader, you are the one that are building relationships, there's an R again, to work with families. So those 2 principles will help you to kind of keep in mind and frame the idea about how important it is to work with families. If you find an idea that connects with you, you can share a thumbs up, or you can enter into the chat how you could apply that idea to the work that you are doing. And if during this session we stir up an effective idea, share it to us in the chat so that we can have other people also pick up that idea. And in the future, I can work those ideas into the presentation as well. So when we share information with families, one of the key things to remember is a rule that I call 3 by 3. We share information 3 times and in 3 different ways. So whether it's a message you're delivering to the family, it's an invite for them to come to some kind of an event, or it's program information, remember that we need to find 3 ways to share it and then share it 3 different times. So when we're communicating with families, think about communicating in 2 ways. To send a message does not mean that the person has received it. It just means you sent it. So it has to be both giving information and getting information back. So on the right side of your frame, you will see where it says parent-teacher communication form. The top half of that sheet was designed with the idea that the person communicating with families would fill in their message there. The lower part was a place for the family to make a reply and to return that information back to you. If you send a message on your phone, we can send a text message very easily, but unless there is a reply or a thumbs up or some kind of a connection, we never know if that message was received by our families. And a lot of misunderstandings can happen when people don't know if their message was received. And also on that lower right is what I call a clip in return. So let's say you're doing a field trip, send the information to the family on the upper portion of the paper and use the bottom half for the responses that you need. If they respond in other ways, certainly that is fine, but that gives the nudge to do something with that information and to acknowledge it. Here's an idea that I share with you from Colleen Whitten, who is the director of early learning in the Madison, Wisconsin program. And this was an idea that she had, and that idea is to have students draw artwork on one side of the index card or a postcard, and then the teacher can share their positive note to the family on the reverse side. But be sure that students have put their name on their artwork or in some way acknowledge that that is a work of art from their student. So simple idea, you can have your whole class do that at the beginning of the year, and one by one, as there's something to share with families, you have a beautiful note to share it. Another way of making personalized stationery that has a element of each student is to have students fingerprint a sheet of paper to be the teacher's stationery. And you can make copies of that as you wish to. But what you're going to have done is you're going to take a piece of paper and you're going to have students place their fingerprints all the way around the paper. And again, add the student's name so families know which fingerprint is their youngsters. But it will delight parents with a personal note from you and from their classroom. Share greetings, whether that be birthdays, that be holidays. Getting a card will delight the children, and a short, personal, positive note will testify to the families your dedication to their student. It's just that one more personal relationship touch. In our program, we did our newsletters to families every Tuesday. They were predictable. Every Tuesday, a newsletter went out. But to give them extra attention, we started to put them on purple paper. That purple paper was kept under secure lock so that nobody was running off handouts for the classroom or whatever on the purple paper. But that way, we could tell parents that the purple parent pages were for them. So parents learned that that purple pages was intended for them. And we gave them a purple folder in order to be a collection point for their papers as well. But consider when you send communications, make it consistent and on a predictable frequency. We actually did a survey to find out when was the best time to send them. We found midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursdays were by far greater times to share messages than Mondays or Fridays. Consider your parking needs. Where can families park when they come to your program? Whether you're talking about just a run-in and out of school kind of visit, or whether you're talking about them coming in for a period of time to observe or visit or volunteer, give some thoughtful consideration to where families are going to leave their vehicles during that time. And then during COVID, one of my neighborhood schools here had what we called a hug and go zone. So what they did is they allowed families to pull into that space and then to do the drop off and pull away. But it was a nice way for families to do that, and staff members could be positioned outside so that they were making connections with families. If nothing more, a wave and a smile made a difference during those challenging times. Build on the positive. Every student, every family, every community, every staff member has positive qualities. Avoid negative thinking and look for the positives and build upon those. Name tags and room labels. Make sure that when anyone comes to your program, that they are identified so that other staff members, so that other guests that might be in the building know who these individuals are. But decide what are the visitors that you typically have and prepare some name tags ahead of time so that they are identified for what they do. You may want to add graphics to that. You may want to add color coding, but that is a quick way in order to make people feel welcome, because now people can call them by name. Also label your rooms. Make sure that outside of each room, there's a list of the teachers' names. You won't believe the number of times that a parent will come to the door and they don't remember their teacher's name. So give them that extra nudge and knowledge and information so that they know who each other is. As I said, color code tags. So let's say that you are going to have an event. If you use symbols, you use colors, you use some kind of relationship identification. It could be the name of a class if you have different names for the classrooms, but it helps acquaint staff and guests with each other. If I'm the teacher of classroom C or the Bluebird room, and they're all wearing blue name tags, I know exactly who I'm looking for as I look at my audience at the event. Introduction phone calls. Reach out to families and introduce yourself. You can share information about your program, maybe certain things that you are good at, certain things that you stress in your program. You can find out about the students, gather student information. You can plant the seeds for relationship building with families, and you can leave positive comments about the work you're doing. So you might make a phone call and you may say, I look forward to having, and then state their child's name, student in my class. You might let them know some personal information like, well, I have 3 children too, just like you, so that we're building upon that parenting experience. Or you might say, I've been a teacher here 5 years, giving them confidence in who you are and what you are going to be doing with their student in your classroom. Create parent package for field trips. Field trips are a wonderful opportunity for programs to see outside things from the school program, but chaperones are so essential and we need them to be well trained to do that. So we want to give them important information about our excursion. We want them to know without a doubt that they know the students that are in their group that they're going to be taking about their field trip experience, and a map so that they know where they're going and where they're going to return to. So give them any other pertinent information as well in that packet, but a clipboard is a lovely place to be able to organize that information for them during the day. And be sure you always give them the contact information for the field trip leader. Make connections a priority. Staff needs to be intentional in making contacts with families. Reflect on what you want families to know. So sit down at a meeting, make a phone call, but have it plotted out that you will know what 1 or 2 points you're going to be making. And then budget your time to allow connection moments. You can arrange your pickup time situation so that your students will be occupied doing an activity. So as parents come to the door and you call them up to the door one by one to meet their families, that you can have a quick moment with those parents to be able to do that. Find out what you want to know and make sure that that information is exchanged at that time so that we're always sharing information. And again, it's not the time at the door to share negative information. It's a time for us to build positive relationships. You can have a record sheet. So all the students' name will be listed down the side. And then you can have, did they attend an event? Did they return forms that you would ask to have returned? Have you sent a positive phone call to that family? So as you check those off, you'll see which families you're having contact with, and you may begin to see a pattern of families that you need to be intentional and purposeful in reaching out to them. So as an administrator, if you are in a position working with families, make sure that you have the opportunity to set some guidelines and expectations for your staff. How many contacts do you want them to have? Do you want them to send some kind of a holiday greeting card or a positive note on a regular basis? But reach out to those that are connected with less frequently and build stronger relationships. A positive phone call, much like the introduction phone call that we just talked about, but reach out to families and share an experience. Families love to hear something positive and encouraging about their youngster. Relay positive information to build on the relationships that you have. I thought you'd want to know, and then share the milestone that a student did. Offer encouragement and praise to the family. We thank you for bringing your child to our program. Gather their feedback and suggestions. Tell me what you do when, and get the families to give input about situations. What does your child share about? Ask them the things that their student is excited about and build upon those things as well. I like this short slide, very simple. With is a good 4-letter word in education. We're not doing things to or for, we're doing it with families. So think of that relationship building. Do you have dedicated space for your families to be able to connect? Do you have a place where they can sit down and have a cup of coffee and sit down and chat with another parent? Some of the relationships that were so important in my building weren't the ones that just I had with the families. They were the families having relationships with each other as well. Do you have a place for information to be shared? It could be shared on a post, on a bulletin board. It can be posted next to the door where they are entering. Think about the information families need on an ongoing basis and put it someplace where they're going to run into it. Do you have secure lockers for volunteers, for the valuables that they may bring in if they come to volunteer? That's another great place to post private notes to families and encouragement to families. If you don't have lockers in your program, is there a closet? Is there a drawer? Is there a file cabinet that can be used for that for families to keep their possessions and someone who can monitor what goes in and out? At the door greeter. What a wonderful opportunity for anyone welcoming students on an ongoing basis to stand at that door to say welcome in the morning or when they arrive. But there can be a welcoming that's done on a daily practice, but it definitely is one you should have for any kind of an event that you're having at your program. Have a greeter at the door to make students and families feel welcome. And uncertainty that they might have can be reduced as the greeter shares information and directs them to where they're going. Do you know which room you're going to? Do you know who that teacher is? And just by giving them those extra nudges, you can always pull aside another parent or another student and say, hey, this family needs to go here. Can you show them where that is? So rely on other people to help you through that guidance process as well. Sharing classroom favorites. We get so caught up in what we are doing, we sometimes don't remember that families don't know the words to finger plays, or they don't know about the games that we're playing, or the songs that we're singing, or recipes of things that we may have made in the class. We empower families to extend learning at home when we provide such information to them. When I asked my children, when I would pick them up at the end of the day, what did you do today? 1 out of 3 of my children would say, I did this and this and this, and I would have a 15-minute conversation about her day at school. Her brothers were not quite as vocal and would say, oh, nothing. And it was a very short answer. But with the words in my hand, I can say, well, I know that you did such and such. Do you notice a picture in the middle? That's one of my favorite things to do with kids, making the 3 bears and doing a 3 bear story and narrating the story. This one talks about how important it is to host meetings, to tour guests, to build on relationships. Welcome your community. There are many connections, whether they be elected officials, employers, or family services that are offered. When we collaborate, relations begin with getting to know each other, and we build on those relationships as we begin to serve families in a united way. Recognize that sometimes having people in your program can be a security concern. So you do certainly have to address that. And I know that there are many programs who do not have a space to be able to do such collaborative things during the program day. But think about how your program can be used in other hours of the day. Ask for donations of recycled items. I'm going to give you a clue. We are going to be doing, before the end of the year, a workshop about using junk materials. But materials that are recycled are budget friendly, and the resources that can be teachable treasures. So take a look at the one on the left. That's my fishing game. Those are juice lids that come off of orange juice concentrate. And with a fishing pole, we can go fishing in match pairs, pick up things that we can identify, numbers, letters, who are the people in my class, animal matches. We can do so many different things, but a Pringle can happens to be the absolute perfect size to store your lids in it. So you could have 4 different collections of juice lids and create out of that 4 different types of activities or contents. The one in the middle is what I call perpetual bowling. There's a type of a juice that is made with that special handle on the top. And if you attach that to a string to a doweling that you run between 2 locations, this happens to be 2 chairs, you can bowl. And as soon as those bowling pins have moved out of the way for the ball to pass through, you can go to the other side and roll back again. And they always end up standing up again. The one on the far right were containers that were donated by a grandmother from our program. She had a whole stack of those, and we used contact paper to cover up the advertisement for the product. And what we did is we put together take-home materials for families So whether it was a class project that we wanted them to do at home, or whether it was an absent student who had not been there for a little bit and was going to be out for a period of time, we could send activities home in order to let them know that we were thinking of them and that there were activities that could be done to enhance learning at that time. Not everyone is tech savvy. Now, I put that statement in there, and Vicki knows why. It's because I'm not tech savvy. My technician is not here today. He is off doing another project, and I almost panicked, but we worked our way through it. We got everything running just well. But technology must be balanced with traditional methods. Not everyone is tech savvy. Not everyone has equal technology access. They anticipate a variety of abilities. And then go back to slide number 1 and say to yourself, 3 by 3, we send every message 3 times and in 3 different ways. Write your newsletters that you send home or any kind of communications with families at that 4th to 6th grade level. So if you have a word count with your Word document that you're working with or whatever program you create with, always double check to make sure that your word count is appropriate. And if not, go back and break some of your sentences into 2 sentences instead of 1 long one. Write your sentences on the short side. Limit the number of adjectives and adverbs that you use. Focus on the future rather than reporting what has happened. Include visual attention getters, things like pictures, graphics, and frame boxes. Just some simple things to keep in mind when doing communications. And another thing is to make sure that we have a proofreading pal. Actually, I would like to say a proofreading team. Have a team approach to reviewing your communications. Spell check is helpful, but it's not enough. When you look at that heading above the frame that I was just referring to, that blue frame, there's just 1 letter switch in that word, mistake. Quickly reading it, you'd say, oh yeah, it says mistake because I put it there. But have somebody who hasn't been the creator of the document take a look at what you're doing. You might have multiple reviews, 1 person who is the content person who knows everything that's going on in the building. And then you might have another person who is really good at grammar or is really a good sentence structure person. So many different aspects to proofreading. Is it formatted right? Is punctuation correct? Is spelling correct? Is things capitalized that should be capitalized? Always answer for every article that's a part of your communication: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Taking you all the way back to English in high school, I know I am. Label resources that you share. So labels, you'll see the book Letters A to Z. That is a quick reminder to parents that this is something that they need to bring back. If you get fluorescent labels that stand out more, they will get more attention. But every resource that you send home, the bags that we created to send home have an outside pocket. So it has a program name and number in that pocket so that families know exactly where that item belongs. Have a family get acquainted gathering of some sort. Do some type of a mixer event so families get a chance to speak with each other. Have a large map of your community and pinpoint where families live. I've had families that rode to school on the same school bus who didn't know each other, and they were on the same street. Do a scavenger hunt. It's a good way for having everybody explore your program. Have them find a thing in each major area where they might have to visit. So the office, the nurse's quarters, the cafeteria door. Take pictures so that you can share with families after the fact information about your program. Explore a classroom where they might find the different types of learning centers that exist, or offer tours of the building. Build connections with families. Remember, what's that magic word I said? A good 4-letter word in working with families? With. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Communicate with families in that proportion. In other words, listen, more than you speak. Make eye contact and smile. Make sure that they know that you are looking at them and establish those relationships. There's something about planning events that allow families to visit your program. It's a wonderful time to see the positive things that are happening in your building, the learning that is going on there. So set up artwork displays and set up many things for them to see when they come. But pay attention to something called the 4 F's in doing any programming. And that 4 F's means food, family, fun, and free. Again, 4 F's: food, family, fun, and free. The little guy on your right on your picture is showing off a booklet that he was creating at a family event. And that special cover that he has that wrap around his book is nothing more than a luncheon napkin, and put over the top, it adds a touch of summer and festivity. So that was a project that they did on their event with us. Thoughtfully consider and define your program expectations. I had a program who said, oh, it's so frustrating. Families coming through the door, they're on their phones, they pick up their child from my room and they don't say hi because they're too busy on their phone to do that. So we talked about the situation and we had them put up a sign. We thank you for refraining from use of your phones here at school. Our staff and your children appreciate your full attention. The key thing is, who appreciates it? Both the staff and their children. It's so important after they've been gone for that length of time, no matter what length of time it is, that they have the opportunity to reconnect with their children and to realize what their children have done during their absence. So what are the program expectations for staff? What about family connections? Is there something specified in your program that says we expect our teachers to do X number of phone connections, X number of private messages? Decide what is appropriate for your program and then hold the staff accountable for that. Remember the chart that I showed you where you could record that? Because if we don't measure it, if we're not paying attention to it, it's so easy to say, oh yeah, I've done that. And then realize, wait a minute, there's this one family who they seem to, the kids go home with someone else. I don't ever see that family. Make sure you know which families have not been connected with so that you have the opportunity to nurture those relationships at other times. So how are those expectations identified? Are they in writing? Are they verbally done? Is it something that you can have staff help create on their own and document after they've come up with what they think good expectations are? School is not magic because learning happens at home as well. Do you remember the very first slide I showed you and said my principles, 2 of them? Well, the one, school plus home equals learning, there it is on the lower left again. Explore how can you encourage learning at home. There is many workshops that I've shared on that topic. And even though we think we have it all covered, we realize, oh my gosh, maybe it's something we don't share enough. So activities for families to do at home, the ability to build on the finger plays and the songs that you've done at school by doing a recording of them, doing a YouTube connection for families to see some of those things done. The Safe Me game and book is something that I've not addressed and have done that with our last round of game development. Safety is something we talk about at school, but technically we don't really practice it. We can talk about crossing the street safely, but we never took 15 kids out to the street to cross them. But families cross their children very often getting to their cars on the way home. So if we want that child to learn safety, we need to make sure we do it at school and we do it at home. And so many topics are the same way. If we're learning it at school, families should know we're doing it at home so they can build upon those ideas as well. Create reference fact sheets so that you get to know each family. Find out what are the names of the family members. Don't assume the child's last name is a name that you're going to have for all of the family members that you visit with that family. Does the student have a pet? on a really rough day, it's really nice for a child who's having a hard day to talk to you about your pet, but only if you know the name of the pet to ask a question. What is the preferred name for the student or for the parents? My technical name is Beverly. I don't use Beverly, and my mother would be really disappointed, I am sure, but I simply go by the name of Bev. When I get a phone call or a contact and someone said, "Is Beverly home?" I know it's somebody who doesn't know me. How do you pronounce names? When we have names that are not English or not in from our culture, we need to make sure we say, how do I pronounce that? Where is the emphasis on that? Now, let me say that again. Is this correct? And practice it several times until we have it correct. What are the favorites of a student? What are the dislikes that they have? So as we gather information about the family and about the student, we can have deeper, more meaningful relationships. What do we want you to do? We want you to encourage families and parents. What does that encouragement sound like? Using language like, we are a team. You are your child's expert. You are an awesome parent. Families need to hear that once in a while. They have busy lives and busy schedules. They need to know how critical they are to their students' learning. Thank families for their help. This could be a note that is done with a package of seeds from flowers or a flower itself, but tell them give them a message. Our program plants the seeds for success. Families make them grow and blossom. Just giving them encouragement. Sharing hugs and kisses for the many ways you help. During volunteer week, we had little baggies of hugs and kisses with that note that we passed out to our families, or put it on a sticker and stick it to the baggie. We also had a dish out that we would put that out so people as they pass through would be tempted to take a hug or a kiss, but they could read the message at the same time. Just constantly letting families know that what they do makes a difference and that we appreciate what they're doing at home as well. Limit what I call one-time experiences. Rather, build on. So let's say we are working with younger students and we're working on the alphabet. You could study the letter A and then you could study the letter D, and you could just randomize according to what your curriculum has you introduce letters and sounds. Or you can have a student make something and save all of those activities that they've put together until you have the full alphabet assembled, and then share the book. So now when it goes home, it's not a piece of paper, but it's rather a collection that can help reinforce what we've been teaching. We did what we would call a reading chain. We would challenge families to read a book and to write the title down on the chain link, and we would assemble a growing chain for each of our students. When we did that book chain, it was not just a one-time event that we praised them for reading a book. They got the acknowledgement of doing a whole string of books, and were able then to see the progress and the impact that that had. It also raised a very interesting competitive nature out of the adults in our program. Parents didn't want to be outdone by somebody who read more books than they did, and we found ourselves with an insurgence of book reading. Very, very healthy for our students. Teach and reinforce skills that support learning. Be intentional and purposeful. When parents and children spend meaningful time together, playing, talking, and learning, everyone wins. So identify what are the skills that your students need. Where are your students not as strong in a particular skill that families could help build on? I was doing a research project with a program with a school district, and one of the teachers said, well, it's the beginning of the year and our students don't know their names very well. It takes us a while for them to do that. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a great way to introduce that by also having the parents work with learning their name at home. So what we had the teacher do was to make a name plate like they would for where their coat goes and where their backpack goes, and make an extra one. And we then gave it to the parents and said, here is your child's name. We are practicing finding that name here in the classroom. Why don't you take this home and hide this in various places around your home and have your student look for their name at home? You maybe want to make some others as well for other members in your family, just so that your child has more things to be looking for and more names for them to recognize. A teacher said to me after that week that we introduced the name recognizing process, she said, "Oh my gosh, I've never had all my kids recognize their names this early in the school year." But why did that happen? Only because we're intentional and purposeful in saying, this is a skill our youngsters need to be reinforcing. So share strategies at programs. Consider virtual and in-person options. So how can you use connections outside of your program building in order to share information? COVID opened the door to teachers doing many unique things. Teachers finding YouTube activities that they could share to families. Families that are finding pictures that they can send home to help encourage activities. But model practices whenever you can that are used in your program. Notice the adult on the lower picture here, and you see the 4 fingers being held up. If she's doing what I think she's doing, and I found her on an internet search of pictures, so I'm not sure who this person is, but she's holding up 4 fingers. To me, that reminds me of a skill that I learned from my kindergarten teacher. And that was when my youngster was learning, I very quietly recorded with my fingers how many words were a challenge on that page. If there were 5 words or more that were a challenge to that learner, that meant that that book was too hard for them, and that we needed to find a book that was at a lower level for our child to be able to read. So if you are going to be doing an event, share a program. Let your family see learning in action in your program. If you're doing that and it is a sustained length of video, make sure there's not a single child who is missed. And I know that means looking at it several days in a row as you do the recording and make sure that every child is present and has been captured on the film. But that way parents see their children doing activities, and it's really important. So think about how you can reach them and what strategies will help you to demonstrate to families the skill that we're working on. One of the skills that I have seen as a struggle for families to learn is something we put together into our Let's Draw and Write book. So this is our draw and writing activity book, and there are several pages of information here. But on this page here, the important thing to note is that we show families how they should have their youngster hold a pencil. If you have youngsters who are still making a fist and holding the writing tool in their fist, we know they're not going to have the dexterity in their wrist to be able to write effectively. So make sure that we are looking for how we can share information for them. But that writing journal then became a class project where it went from one family to the next, with each one responding to an open-ended question. And it became a process of emphasizing to families, whether they draw pictures, whether they dictate a story to you, or whether they write some letters themselves. It's a wonderful way for them to be encouraged to be writers. Some children will become efficient readers only when they have a purpose for their written work to be read. Books build vocabulary, and they help us to look at talking together. So it's so important. We often sent families home with books from our program, but we did not wait until the end of the day to give them the books. We gave them the books at the beginning of the day. So as parents gathered with me with whatever kind of activity I had in the parent center, I would have them select a book. And then I would have them, for example, one day I'd say, open your book, find a page in your book. What animal on this page have you not said the name of today? And so as they looked at the book, they might realize, oh my gosh, no, I don't think we've seen a butterfly or a bat. So they then could talk with their child about that. Pictures and words are more than enough for young readers. They don't have to have the words read to them. You can just look at the pictures and name the things that they wish to know. Or we could, on another time, I taught them what we'd call comment, ask, response. And that car was a simple way to remind families that, first of all, we talk about what we see, and then we ask a question, and then we respond. So I might look at the seagull and I might say, I see a bird that flies near the lake. Do you see a bird that flies near the lake? And I've asked them a question. If the child points to the seagull, we say, yay, yes, that is the animal I was looking at too. And then we can analyze the other animals on the page and say, are any of these flyers that are near the lake or water? And so we can have this conversation with them. Make sure we also are attentive to families' language needs. So if you have Spanish-speaking families in your program, make sure that you have some book selection so that when families come in, they have the option of taking a book home that supports not only their language, but also the English language as well at the same time. Encourage vocabulary growth using something called serve and return. That exchange back and forth is so important because children not only need to be spoken to, but they need to speak to us. They need to be able to put their thoughts together into sentences and into complete paragraphs for us. So ask a question, wait for a response, comment, and then wait for a reply, and continue that exchange back and forth. Ask families to think about when that time is used wisely in their home or in their travel. When is a time when you might extend that activity to expand on their vocabulary? Open yourself a mini library. It doesn't have to be big. It can share books and resources to empower your families to do that home learning. Rather than saying you should read, offer them a book to take home to read. And volunteers can be enlisted in order to support the open of your library and how it's managed. These can be older students in a building that come down to a classroom to help. These can be families that take a few moments on a certain day a week to reorganize the library. But think about how you can enrich book experiences for the families that you work with. Write a prescription for families to engage in. Follow the format of a prescription form, inviting families to support and encourage learning. So you could give parents an opportunity to read, talk, play, sing. Any of those things you could write a prescription for. We recommend you doing, and then tell them what you would like them to do. We were very fortunate. I had a director who had a doctorate, and we called her Doctor and followed by her name. And so when she was away for the summer, I said, I hope you don't mind. I took liberty of writing a prescription for all of our kids. So we asked families to read at home and to report back how their child responded. And it was a beautiful way in order to encourage reading. Send students home from events with learning resources to build skills. I very often hear people say, oh, well, what kind of a door prize are we going to give? Who cares about a door prize? When you do a door prize, one child or one family goes home excited because they won something. When you send resources home to children and families from a program, everyone goes home with that idea of being a winner and an opportunity to expand. So I said we did some activities. So here's an example of the make and take kind of experiences that we offer. The top one is a bingo game. The bottom one is an activity for every day, our learning moments, and it challenges families to do a certain number of activities from making something together to going on a scavenger hunt for certain items, but it's an experience that engages families and children together. The other side, the right side, says shared resources. Let's say that you have various ages of students. You might have older siblings coming when you do an event. So think about how you would adapt an activity. So I could write numbers 1 through 10 on the sidewalk outside, and I could have children step on numbers 1 through 10, or I could have them do things like writing numbers 10 through 100 and having older siblings step on the 10s. Or I can challenge them to say, put one foot on one number, put another foot on another number, Add them up. What number do you get? How do I get the highest number possible? So think about calibrating an activity to various age levels. Stay current. Avoid displaying or sharing information that is out of date. So whether that's notices that are hung about your building, signage, or whether that's electronic sign in front of your program, make sure that it's always current. And I find one of the greatest places where we have out-of-date information is on answering machines. So make sure that your answering machine has been updated. It wasn't but a few weeks ago I called the program and I found out that they were going to be closed on Memorial Day. We were well a month past that, but I know exactly what happened. The person who made the message got so busy in that end of the year flurry, never went back to change the machine. And anybody who is calling in to the school, who is a part of the staff member, usually has an override way of how they reach where they need to go. So nobody was calling in to let anybody know that their message was dated. Temporary signage catches attention as well. Our director was a really good sport. We could make a sandwich sign for her and she would tell families to come back and join us for our evening event tonight. And if you don't think she got attention walking around outside saying bye to the kids and pointing to the sign and giving them a reminder about coming back for the event, it was highly effective. But you can also put what we would call a stand-up sign outside, and you could have the information placed on both sides so walkers or drivers could see that information and would get the information that needed to be shared. If you left it up all the time, or if you did the signage sandwich board idea every day, it would lose effectiveness, but occasionally it was a really rich idea for making those connections. Reflect on what others see. Step back and consider what others see from their perspective. So if you have garbage littering the playground, does that make a statement to the people who are coming to your program? What about weeds that have gotten out of control? Think about the messages that are received. Post-it notes are my best friend. I think that has something to do with my age, but always have them ready to make a note is such a good idea. So is it information that parents need to be shared? Is it a reminder that you need to do something? Is it an observation that you've made when you're outside on a student's learning progress or an application to something that they did outside that you want to remember? Is it an issue that you need to follow up on? Whether you keep them in your pocket or you wear a special apron, it's always great to have a Post-it note. And one of the things I'd like to stress all the time is that if you've had a connection with a parent and they brought forth an issue, always write yourself a Post-it note and 2 weeks or 3 weeks out, call back or connect back and say, you know, what we talked about, has that been resolved to your satisfaction? This is what I call a file folder classroom summary. This is one I did for one of my classrooms at the beginning of the year after a conversation with the teacher saying that she had had a low turnout at our open house. So I created this folder for her specific to her classroom, showing the activities in the classroom and explaining our day at the school. 2 file folders, laminated, stapled together. So not that big of a deal, 8 pages total or 8 printable sides. This idea can be used to summarize a field trip. It can be used to summarize the completion of a unit. So it can be applied in so many other ways. And I said to her, here, share this to the families that didn't get to come to your open house. She said, oh, well, then I won't get my folder and it'll be lost. And I said, I have a note on the back and says, please return this back to your teacher's classroom. And I put a note there as well for you to be able to write a personal note on it. And she did not lose that document. She had that and it circulated through all of her families that missed the open house. Just because they're not there doesn't mean they don't care. Sticker sheets. I'm a sticker advocate. And again, if they're fluorescent, they give you an extra visual attraction, but I like the 10 per sheet size. So the sticker sheets can invite an activity. We've been counting by 5s, count to 100 with me. When families see that on their child's shirt, on the child's backpack, stuck to a piece of paper, to their lunchbox. They go, oh, I guess we should do that. And they're usually impelled to do it. You won't ever have 100% achievement, but I've seen very strong achievement levels from using sticker notes. The one on the bottom are classes learning how to share and take turns. Talk with me about taking turns and show me how you take turns in what you do. That's the way to nudge social emotional development. Avoid abbreviations or acronyms. So I'm giving you a test here. I gave you 5 acronyms there. Go ahead and tell me what they say. And these are education acronyms. I happen to have been able to pull this off of Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. They're special ed acronyms. And believe me, there was a whole A to Z pages worth of acronyms. So I just gave you 5. I hope you got your answers. Here's what they stand for: Behavioral Intervention Plan, Coordinated Early Intervening Services, Emotional Behavioral Disability, Individualized Education Program, Significant Developmental Delay. Do you know how confusing that is to families when they don't know what those words mean? There is not many single syllable words in that whole thing. So understand, when we use those things, it's so hard on families to understand what's being said, and sometimes causes panic. Share about planned events so families can plan to attend. If you know what your full year calendar is, give parents a heads up that they know too. So if you know in January that you usually have an end of the year program in May, give parents a heads up so that they know that date too. If they have to plan vacation dates or plan around certain things, they need to know what they're doing. Same thing with monthly. Give them a calendar so they know. But remember, those first few days of a month, especially on a short week of a new month, they often will miss things simply because they haven't had a chance to get that information and to process it. So make sure that you share information. Schedule breaks as well. If families know when schedule breaks are, they can plan around them and do things special during those times. But because we know, we so often assume that families know as well, and we should never make assumptions. Be willing to accept that issues will come up and promise that you will address them. So when you're building relations with families, there will be some bumps and there will be some hurdles, but understand when you work with, my 4-letter word in education, that's a positive, work with them. So again, I shared with you that we had some new things. These are really we're proud of the fact that we have these. They will be available in Spanish as well. But our Me series, these could be given to families. They could be used in a classroom setting. They could be circulated or given out. So however it works with your program. So these are, again, some of the resources we do. We have the games. We have the durable fabric game bags we could use. We have the solution packs. And if you have questions about any of those things, Vicky's contact information was on the front of our slides, and she can answer any of those questions for you. Your challenge was to take away 3 ideas, and Vicky, I did it. I'm down to a minute. If anybody has an idea that has helped them today, put them in the chat, and we'll leave the chat on for a few minutes so that you can go ahead and do that. Or email us your suggestions. We really do welcome them. Like the great idea I shared with Colleen from the postcards. I had never done postcards before she had introduced that idea to me. So share those ideas, because great ideas that other people are using can just be dynamite ideas for all of us. And if there's any questions, Vicki, if anybody raised a question, do you have anything you need to share with us?
Nobody has raised a question yet. I think that we're good there. Cindy did write in that she likes the idea of sharing a visual with parents on how to help their children hold a pencil. And Kim loves the 3x3. It's wonderful. Makes a huge difference.
Cool. Thank you guys for those ideas. And any other ideas that you'd like to add, please, please, please share them with us. Vicki, I don't know that I have the date, but I have a quick commercial for the month of September. We are going to do an 1.5-hour long workshop about building relationships, and I have 2 guest people joining us that day. One of them that is an expert in neuroscience, and so she is going to talk about brain development and how we can encourage brain development in our youngsters as we build relationships with families, because so much of the learning needs to be done with families, not just in our program day. And I also have an expert that is a communication expert. She worked in the industry of TV production. And so she's going to be sharing her knowledge about good communication practices. And I will be doing some things about extending learning at home.
That is September 24th.
September 24th. Save the date. We will be sure to let you know more about that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.